What is the official explanation of the mysterious mounds?
Welcome, friends. This is Dane Rome, your announcer for today's Last Days Beacon program. Thanks for listening, and thanks for joining us again. And just a reminder that these programs are supported by your gifts to this ministry. If you'd like to contribute to this ongoing faith ministry, which deals with Bible prophecy and current events, simply go to our website to contribute. Our website address is www.swpm.us. You'll find a donate link on the homepage. The website address again is www.swpm.us. Thank you for your prayers and support for this faith ministry. On today's program, Dr. Snitker interviews L.A. Marzulli regarding his latest brand new film entitled The Mysterious Moundbuilders. In this DVD, L.A. and his team explore some of the thousands of mysterious mounds scattered throughout the Midwestern United States to the Gulf of Mexico. These mounds, some gigantic in size, contain clues to the hidden history of America. The truth regarding the builders of these mounds and their contents have been carefully hidden by the scientific establishment and our government. What are they hiding, and why? This will be the subject of today's intriguing discussion. So let's join Dr. Snitker and L.A. Marzulli as they discuss the mysterious mound builders.
Thank you, Dane, and welcome, friends, to another Southwest Prophecy Ministries podcast. What a privilege to continue a series of interviews today with L.A. Marzulli. L.A. is on the trail of the Nephilim. This trail has most recently taken him to the mysterious mounds that are frequently seen throughout the Midwestern United States. His findings are contained in a brand new film entitled The Mysterious Moundbuilders. And we as a ministry are very privileged to be promoting and distributing this latest film on the Trail of the Nephilim series by L.A. Marzulli. So we're going to be continuing our discussion with L.A. today regarding his research. So L.A., welcome back to our show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we broached this last week in our introductory discussion, but I'd like you to go into a little bit more detail as to what the official explanation by the academic community is as to the origin of these mounds.
Well, this is what mainstream archaeologists will tell us is that, again, Native American First Nation people constructed the mounds. What's interesting is they have no idea of the name of the people. They make up a name, like Hopewell, Adena, Mississippi. Modern-day archaeologists have no idea who these people were. So they make up names, like the Hopewell. Hopewell was a farmer where artifacts were found on his farm, and so they call the entire collection the Hopewell people. So this is what we're supposed to believe. Archaeologists don't know what the people call themselves, but they can tell us all about the mounds and how it was done. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, it's really, in my opinion, making up stuff. They just make up stuff. For instance, the names are just made up. Hopewell, Adena. These are not what these people, or even in fact, if they were people, call themselves. And this is why we're doing the hard science. For instance, in the North Circle Mound, we hired a surveyor. Now, the last time the Circle Mound was surveyed that I'm aware of, and I'm sure someone had to have done it after that, would be Squire and Davis. Squire and Davis, we owe a debt to them because they published their book, which at that time was kind of expensive, and it showed the mounds and what they looked like. They conducted extensive surveying, and they created lithographs in the book, and we still have that today, which is incredible. So we can get a good idea of what the circle mound looked like when Squire and Davis were back surveying it in the 1850s. So that's, we're approaching 200 years. We're still a ways away, but we're approaching 200 years. So we hired a surveyor, Todd Willis, and Todd went out there because the circle mound is about 1,200 feet wide, okay, in diameter, 1,200 feet in diameter. And in the interior of that circle is a moat, and that moat is down about 8 feet below the surface, which, by the way, is pretty much dead level. And so Todd surveyed the bottom of the moat to see if it was level. And to his astonishment and ours, basically it's dead level. It varies within 6 inches, which can be accounted for silt over the thousands of years, what have you, to fill up some of the bottom. But for all practical purposes, that thing is dead level. How was that done in the ancient world? Moreover, when you in the circle now, and I've been there numerous times now, it's hard to see what it is. It really is. That's how big this thing is. When you're in it, you're dwarfed by it. It was definitely ceremonial. There was an altar. There was some sort of effigy mound in the center of it. The water around in the circle must have been incredible. Think of the torchlights. Get rid of all the trees that are there now. It must have been an unbelievable sight. But you can only see it from the air. In other words, when you're in it, you're not really sure what you're looking at. Just like when you're in the octagon now, which is part of the same complex. You're not sure what it is you're looking at. You can only see it when you're high above it in the air. And then it becomes, and we threw the drone over that. That's some incredible drone footage, which is in the first film, just showing the enormity of that circle mound. I mean, cars are dwarfed. When I say 1,200 feet, most people can't get their head around that. This thing is huge.
That's about a quarter of a mile across. That is a massive size. When you think about it, let's say a quarter mile track, and you straighten it out, the oval track, that is a massive mound. And to think that you can't really distinguish its shape except from the air. And obviously that technology did not exist, whoever the builders might be. Now, this moat that you referred to, what was the bottom of the moat? I usually think of a moat as something that has a stone, a bottom to it, and maybe even stones on the sides. Was this an earthen moat?
This is an earthen moat, and it might have had clay at the bottom of it, which, again, this is why we're on the trail and drilling down into these things, trying to find out.
Okay, well, L.A., was this an earthen moat or a stone moat, the one that you described as being totally level in its base?
Well, it is an earthen moat, and more than likely it's got a layer of clay at the bottom. In fact, when it rains there, you'll get standing water at the bottom of it. The question is, where did the water source come from? I would posit that there's got to be a source that's hidden underneath the ground someplace, some sort of a French drain something which filled this up. That's never been discovered, so we really don't know. But water had to have come from someplace, and this is a very highly ceremonial, highly charged site, in my opinion. And it begs the question, how does a people with hose that are made of the scapula of a deer or flint hose, I mean, how would they survey this thing to begin with? How would they make, and the circle is almost perfect. I mean, it's one thing you do it on a smaller scale. I wouldn't be talking about it. But it's 1,200 feet is like really, really big. And when you're in it and you look at the plaza that the circle basically borders and creates this large plaza, which is also fairly dead level. So how was this done in antiquity without the use of transits, lasers, and surveying equipment. And, you go back even the Olympic, go back 3,000 years ago, and, it's when was it, how was it done? And archaeologists insisted it was done by Native Americans because who else could it have been? And again, the reason why they're adamant about it, because in their paradigm, which is classic Darwinism, there is no room for the supernatural.
Right. So they really have to twist at least modern archaeological evidence to assert that. I have been to Native American museums that have artifacts, woven items, baskets, etc. So what is known, at least in modernity, within the last 500 years, does not at all conform to the kinds of architectural feats that are contained in these mounds. So there's a huge disconnect just from the standpoint of modern archaeology of first American culture.
Well, there really is. Yeah, we are looking at something, and I call it the fingerprints of the supernatural. And of course, archaeologists don't want to hear that, because in the Darwinian paradigm, there is no supernatural. That's, the superstitious people like you and me, we're the simple-minded folk that believe in the supernatural. But these scientists, which are so much smarter than we are, and of course I'm being facetious here, they know all too well that there is no supernatural, and that, thank God, all of it died out in the Middle Ages, and there are no demons or angels or gods or laws or Moses or miracles. And that's what they believe, and that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their belief, even though it's completely opposite of what mine is. They're still entitled to believe it. And to me, Darwinism is the biggest fairy tale you could possibly ever believe. But that being stated, that what's happening here is a demonstration, a graphic demonstration that you can go right now and look at. And in my opinion, when you see it, you are looking at the fingerprints of the supernatural. When you're standing in it and you touch the mound, you are touching evidence of fallen angel technology, Nephilim architecture, in my opinion. That's my paradigm. That's what I think it is. So if you're a Darwinist and you go there with a bunch of archaeologists, they will tell you you are touching the Hopewell culture. If you go there with L.A. Marzulli, I will tell you it has nothing to do with the Hopewell culture. It's a made-up name. You are touching fallen angel technology, Nephilim architecture, because there's no way that with the type of advanced trigonometry, mathematics, lunar alignments, knowledge of the precession, some of these sites are built on an 18-and-a-half-year lunar cycle. It makes no sense, David. It makes no sense.
It's interesting when secularists have an anti-supernatural bias, they're forced not only to deny the works of God, they're also forced to deny the works of the God of this world, the prince of the power of the air. And because that's the evidence that we're seeing there. That's supernatural, of course, on the dark side of things, but it is indeed supernatural. So they're forced to deny that reality also. So they have to really live in a make-believe world. And one of the ironies behind this is that some of the how should we say elite, at least a global elite, are how should we say, they're secret Satanists. But in terms of the official narrative pertaining to the natural world, they cannot even acknowledge that publicly, because that opens a can of worms also. So they're really forced to construct a fantasy world where evidence which is all around them, evidence of the supernatural, both God and the devil, has to be suppressed, I guess, to use a good a good biblical term from Romans chapter 1. They have to suppress the truth. And at that point, then the endeavor begins on how can we fool the people? How can we deceive people and suppress the evidence? Is that kind of what you see going on in the scientific establishment?
Well, that's exactly what's going on. You remember, Darwinism is taught as fact in our places of higher learning, and if you want to be a biologist or basically anything in the science community, you better toe the party line. You're not going to get degrees and tenure and everything else. You'll just fall by the wayside as your peers who do. So this is intellectual fascism. Is really what it is. It's funny how the left is always banging the drum about fascist, calling Christian conservatives fascists because we believe in certain things like the sanctity of life. With the recent passing of the New York State legislature and also Virginia calling for late-term abortions, including babies that are aborted and born alive, to kill them, it's just beyond the pale. When does the church stand up and push back and say enough already? We're not doing this, and impeach these people and get them out of office, which is what really needs to be done. They're always talking about impeaching Trump. My God, Cuomo and the nutcase governor down in Virginia, these guys should have been impeached yesterday at 3:00 in the afternoon.
Oh, absolutely.
What's taking so long?
It shows that there's really no end to the digression.
No.
In terms of when you deny the image of God in man and began to recharacterize the babe in the womb, they don't even stop at birth. Now we're openly talking about infanticide, and of course, where will that end? Well, I think euthanasia is the next stop on this bus. Again, when you deny the supernatural, man is really nothing special, is he? He's just the latest stage of this evolutionary, by chance and by random development, and there's really nothing special about man.
This is exactly why they can do what they can do. There's nothing special. Life is cheap. Let's kill the babies, and it's insane. It's absolutely insanity. And it's right out of the pit of hell. It's cooked up out of Hell's Kitchen, as my good friend Russ Dizdar would say. That's exactly where it's from. But look, we believe that there was a diaspora about 3,500 years ago, sort of at the end of the Neolithic, moving into the Bronze Age, where the Joshua and Caleb pressed into what is now the Levant or the Holy Land or Israel, and had a mandate from Yehovah, the God of the Bible, to destroy the tribes that were there, kill everybody, men, women, and children, destroy the animals, burn everything. And when people look at that, as I did 38 years ago for the first time, I was greatly taken aback by that, because it seemed like the God of the Old Testament was different than the God of the New Testament. The God of the Old Testament seemed capricious, maniacal, homicidal, genocidal. Those would be good adjectives based on that narrative that we see of the conquest of the land of Canaan. But the moment we factor the Nephilim, which are in there, and the Nephilim tribes, everything changes. What we're looking at are hybrid beings, the result of fallen angels and the women of earth, creating a hybrid known as the Zamzumim, the Emims, the Nephilim, the Anakim, all different names of tribes, which I believe denote different genetic characteristics. So when you factor that into the equation, everything changes. Everything changes. And what we see is that the Nephilim are there. So when Joshua and Caleb go in, there's a diaspora of these Nephilim tribes. And many of them, we believe, fled to the New World, to the United States, and left vestiges, because these mounds fit the timeline almost perfectly.
Oh, absolutely. So it really does go back to Genesis 3, the seed of the woman versus the seed of the serpent. Genesis 6, that talks about the sons of God that interbreeded with the daughters of man, and that the wickedness of that interbreeding was such to where God destroyed almost all of humanity except that one family that was pure in its generations, which I believe has to do with the genetic purity. They had not succumbed to the seduction of the intermarriage of these fallen ones. Really, when you follow that out, it begins to make sense of the archaeology and also the ethics of the instruction to Joshua and Caleb regarding the annihilation of those in the land of Canaan. And so when you really understand the biblical narrative and pay attention to the details, it all makes sense. If you don't, and I've taken classes in Christian ethics, and professors talk about the problem of the annihilation that took place under Joshua, and it's a big ethical problem. Well, if you ignore giants, if you ignore the ramifications of Genesis 3:15, then you do have some ethical problems. But if you understand this really the comprehensive interbreeding that Satan was involved with upon the earth, then you understand God's instructions to Joshua. So it does lead to a coherent system that helps us to understand the archaeology that's going on around the world, and in particular, these mysterious mounds in America's Midwest. But it's
Exactly.
It's like pulling back the shade, so to speak, on this hidden history, and obviously you find all kinds of resistance at the academic and official level when you try to do that.
Well, you do. The academics don't like it. The scientific community don't like it because it goes against the prevailing paradigm, which, of course, as you stated earlier, is Darwinism. And yet, it's funny, when I go to these sites, the party line is just so evident. They repeat it endlessly, that Native Americans built all this with primitive tools. And, it all sounds really good. But even when I did a presentation several weeks ago at a conference up in Oregon, it was the first presentation that I did since the fire back on November 9th, where we lost everything. And I had never presented on the mysterious Moundbuilders. And I remember when I began to tell the folks in the audience what the prevailing paradigm was, that Native Americans built the mounds, that they had simply forgotten that they had done so. And then I demonstrated with the Flint foe and showed film of that. The audience was just laughing uproariously. And it's exactly what I was hoping for. Because when a person looks at it, just a fair-minded person looks at it, and they just go, 28 million single buckets of earth for one man to build a mound. That's what it is. 28 million buckets to build the mound that is known as Poverty Point in Louisiana. That's what it's called. 390,000 tons of earth estimated. And archaeologists believe that it was built rather quickly. They're saying 90 days. Now, I don't know how they come up with that figure, but there's no way a group of hunter-gatherers built that thing in 90 days. Also, in some of the dirt mounds, like the Circle Mound back up in Ohio, it's been stated that some of the dirt that is used in the construction of a mound came from over a mile away. So now you've got a real logistical problem. How did that dirt wind up in the Circle Mound? Who brought it there and why? And I remember asking an archaeologist about this, and this particular archaeologist stated that they had dog sleds, and they would pack these dog sleds with baskets of dirt and move the dirt in this way. And I'm kind of going like, well, why would you need dirt from a mile away? I mean, that just doesn't make any sense at all. Now it really ups the ante on this thing.
Right.
The dog can only carry so many buckets, and it's a mile away. How many buckets are we going to do in a day? 5? I mean, it's just, the whole thing begins to collapse of its own weight when we start drilling into it.
Right. It becomes laughable once you back away from the official story.
Yeah.
And of course, the official story, one of the strengths of an official story is that it is repeated endlessly by everyone who is on the payroll of the deceivers. And so, but once you back away from it and actually employ your gray matter and think things through from a logistical point of view, it really does become laughable. And people realize we have been fed a line of malarkey. This doesn't make sense, even from just from a common sense point of view. And people begin to realize that they're having the wool pulled over their eyes, so to speak. Well, we have to end for today. We're going to pick up again next week. We have a lot of other things we need to cover, L.A. So thank you for joining me again. And friends, I'm sure you will want to obtain a copy of L.A.'s brand new DVD entitled The Mysterious Moundbuilders. So please listen as our announcer, Dane Rome, will share how you may obtain your copy of The Mysterious Moundbuilders.
Thank you, Dr. Schnitker. Friends, in conjunction with today's podcast, we're offering a brand new DVD by L.A. Marzulli entitled The Mysterious Moundbuilders. This groundbreaking film deals with an American culture over 2 millennia ago that erected thousands of mounds throughout the Midwestern United States to the Gulf of Mexico. This investigative film leads to a radically different discovery than the official explanation offered by our government. This beautifully produced film shows you some of these amazing mounds, including the mysterious Serpent Mound. Many experts in the fields of history and archaeology are interviewed as well. Now, you may obtain a copy of this Mysterious Moundbuilders DVD for a gift of $19.99 plus shipping. To obtain your copy, go to our website, www.swpm.us, and then click on the bookstore link. Type in the Mysterious Moundbuilders in the search bar. Again, the Mysterious Moundbuilders DVD is available for your gift of $19.99 plus shipping. Our website address again is www.swpm.us. Well, please join us for next week's Last Days Beacon program, brought to you by Southwest Prophecy Ministries. Until then, this is your announcer, Dane Rome. Thanks for listening.